Okay, today we'll discuss about Splunk macros. Okay, so Splunk macros, you can think of it as a reusable component in your Splunk search, where suppose a particular search portion, if you're using many times, then you can put it in a macro so that you can call that macro, and that macro will be replaced runtime with that search string. Okay, so macros are generally very useful when suppose you have many dashboards in your application, and in all these dashboards you have some search which is running in all the dashboards, right? So in this case, you can implement that search portion in a macro so that you can just call that macro instead of this whole search string in your dashboards. So in future, if you want to do any changes in that search logic, you will just change into one place in the macro body. Okay. So by implementing macro, basically we are achieving two things. One is the modularity of your code, easily maintaining of your code, and as well as your search string will be very much smaller. Okay, so there are two different types of macro we generally deals with. One is eval based macro and another is non-eval based macro. So before we discuss those things, let me show you the data. I have it here. So I have some people name and their basic salary and variable percent. So I'll show you how to create eval based macro, how to create non-eval based macro, and what are the differences between them, and then how to call macro inside a macro. Also, we'll try to discuss that one. Okay, so first let us see how we can create a non-eval macro. So now an eval macro and non-eval macro, if you see functionality wise, both are same. So when we define a macro, the macro body you are giving the search string, right? So dynamically in the runtime, that macro will be replaced by that macro body by Splunk search. Okay. Now when we talk about eval based macro, it is expected that the macro is returning a string. When you use non-eval based macro, you can directly put the search string inside the macro. So let me show you. Suppose I wanted to calculate total salary based on this formula called basic salary. Let me show you basic salary plus basic into that percentage, variable percent. Okay. So to do that, to create any macro from the Splunk UI, this is how you do it. You go to settings, we go to advanced search. Okay. From there, if you see there is a option called search macros. You go there, you select your app from there. So I'll be creating this macro in my TMDB app. So I have selected TMDB over here, then new search macro. Okay. If you see the destination I've already selected as TMDB, I'll give it a name. Let's say total salary. Okay, so now whether a macro is eval based or not is determined by this checkbox. If you check this one, it will be eval based macro. If you don't check this one, it will be a non-eval based macro. So the first we will discuss about non-eval based macro. So what I am trying to say is what I said is whenever we are creating a non-eval based macro, we can directly give a search string over there. So my search string will be something like this. I will be creating a new field called total salary. So that's why that eval total salary equals to, now I will be passing this to my basic salary and variable percent to this macro, right? To do that, what I'll do, I'll create a argument of this macro called basic salary. So in the argument section, you'll be giving control C, these two things, basic salary and variable percent, has two arguments. As the macro has two arguments, it is mandatory that in this name section you give how many number of arguments you have in your macro. If it is one, you have to give one here. Okay. Now the formula is my basic salary. Now this basic salary is my input variable. right? So to access a input variable, you access like this, just like a token. Okay, basic salary plus my basic salary into that variable percent. Again, as a input I am accessing, right? Then divided by 100. So this will be my macro body. Now there is a two options called validation expression and validation error message. I will show you in the next macro. So if I save it, okay, so if you see, the macro has been created. Now if I call this macro over here, so to call a macro, this is how you call. There is a tick mark, if you see, okay, from your keyboard, then the macro name, total salary, and it has two arguments, right? My basic salary and my variable percent. Then tick end. Now this basic salary is corresponds to this basic salary, and variable percent corresponds to this variable percent field. Now when you define the macro, I have given the same name as macro input. You can give any input variable name over here. The same name you have to use over here as well. But when you pass the macro, pass this basic salary and variable percent to this macro, you'll be giving this field name only. Okay, so let us run it and see what's going on. If you see, it has created a total salary field with this formula output. 4000 plus 4000 into 15% is 4600, right? So it is basically same as the runtime. What is happening is something like this. So if I, instead of total salary, if I just gave this one, and instead of this token variable, I just give my field name here, the output will be same, variable percent. The output will be same. So this is how what is happening as well. So runtime Splunk is replacing this macro body with this variable inputs, and then it is running the query. So ultimately this query is getting run. Okay. So but the thing is, this code, if you put it in a macro, you can call that macro anywhere in your search. So that means that this code portions will be reusable now. Okay, now let's see an example where we can use this validation expression and validation error message. Now validation expression is used when you want to do some kind of validation on your macro inputs. Okay, so and validation error message means when this input is getting, or this validation is getting failed, this error message will be displayed over there. So to do that, what I'll do is I'll create another macro. Okay, so now let's say uh, we have basic salary and variable percent, right? Let's say we want to calculate a bonus percentage with this formula called variable percent plus any of the percent, any number, let's say any 7% or 8, any number. I will provide input, so it will give me, it will add those two percentage value and give me the bonus percent. Okay, so to do that, I'll just create that similar macro named bonus. Okay, so the formula will be, again it will be non-eval based. Okay, eval bonus equals to, so my variable percent, right, I have to provide as a input, so I'll giving input. So let's say this time I will rename this to something VP. So I'll say dollar VP dollar, then plus another input I'll be giving, let's say bonus input. Okay, so this bonus I'll be adding here. Okay, bonus. So we have two inputs, that means we have to give two over here. Now I'll add a expression. Now I always want this bonus to be a number. Okay, so to do that, I'll, so this validation expression has to be a boolean expression or eval. Okay, so if you saw my previous video, we we discussed about the various eval expressions, right? And some of the expressions returns boolean, just like operator or in operator or is num operator, which basically checks whether a particular input is number or not. So we'll be using is num over here on this bonus. That means I am checking whether whatever I am providing as the input to this bonus variable parameter, whether it is number or not. If it is not number, I'll give this in this output error message: bonus must be a number. Okay, so let's save this macro. Okay, now I will call this macro here. Let it be my total salary macro called as is. If I just do control C, okay, here I am calling my total salary. So just tick the output. Now after that I'll be calling the bonus macro. Right? So similar way, tick macro name, macro inputs. One of the inputs will be my variable percent, and another input may be, let's say, 8% I want to add with the variable percent. So what will be output? In this case, it should create a new field called bonus with 15 plus 8, 20 plus 8, something like this. Okay. If you see, you can access different macros in your whole search. Okay. Now let's say I have provided a string here. It says test. Okay, what is happening? So if you provide a string here, that validation is getting failed. We have added over here is num. So that's why it is giving you this error: bonus must be a number. So this is how macro input validation works. Okay, let us continue. Now we will discuss about how to create an eval macro. So to do that, what we'll do is, first let me show you two things. If you remember from my previous video, we have created a command called get genre, right? And that command takes an input with the genre ID, and if we are not giving any genre ID and we are giving star, it will give you all the genre details, right? And also um, we have created we have indexed our data into this main index, right? So we have another data set called main, where we're having this salary and this information. Just now we are working with the data set. So suppose there is a requirement that based on certain condition, either I need to go with this data set or I need to go with this data set. In this type of scenario where dynamically you have to determine which dataset to work on, or dynamically you have to determine uh, which search strings to return, that means to search string to work with, eval macros are coming into picture. Okay, so because the main concept behind eval macro is it has to return a string. So in that case, how we will create is like this. Let's say new search macro. I'll give a name called get genre or main index. Okay, just like the name, just to show you the use case of it. So here what I will write a if or case statement. Generally mostly we write a if or case statement for eval based macro. So case, so that we can have different condition, and based on the condition we will be returning the search string. But ultimately if you see, we are returning the search string only at the end of the day, so that Splunk will replace that macro with that search string. So I'm saying I'll provide an argument here. Let's say same argument name, let's say. So either I will provide get gener or I'll provide main as my argument value. Okay, I'll show you how I provide that one. Case, I'm saying my input dollar, this one dollar, is equals to, let's say, get gener. Okay, as it is within quotes, remember that you have, this one has to be quotes as well, or when you are calling, you have to call with this with quotes. I prefer to be like this only, so that everything is in your inside your macro only. In that case, the string I will return is this kind, get gener star. Now you have to be very careful over here when you deal with a generating command. If you see get gener is a generating command, right? That's why it has to be the first command in your search string. Now for generating command, when you run it, if you see there is a bar over here, search bar, right? After that only, if I run this command without this bar, nothing will come up. It requires this bar. But when you put this get gener star, this generating command inside a macro, so you put it without the bar, so that when you call the macro, you will call with bar then macro name. I will show you that one as well, but that's why I'm giving without the bar here. So you has to be very careful with the generating commands, because if you put bar inside, it will not work. Now when my input is main, okay, in that case I will return the string called search index equals to main. Here also another good thing is, when you run index equals to main from your search prompt, right, you do not need to mention search then index equals to main, because that is by default comes up. But when you use it in a macro or somewhere else, you have to put it like this: search then index equals to main. Okay, so this string I'll be returning. So as my macro has one input, so I'll be giving one here. Okay, validation we are not doing anything now, so let's save it. Okay, this is our third macro. So get gener or main. So if I run this macro now, okay, so as I said, it has a generating command, that's why I'm giving a bar over here, then my tick, and then my input. Let's say I'll be giving input as get gener. I want to work with the data set to get gener. Okay, so if, let's see, okay, bracket is missing over here, save. Now if you see, if I run this macro again, it is giving me same, because sometimes it is not, it don't take the refreshed value. So what I will do in this case, just copy this code, close it, run it again. Search factory unknown search command case. To see what's going on. Okay, it has to be eval based macro, because it is returning a string now, right? So let's save it and let's rerun it. Okay, it is not. Okay, now if you see, if I run this get gener macro, so it is giving me this data set where it is running that get gener star generating command and giving me this result. If I say main, in this case, it is giving me this data set where I have indexed my data. So this is how you can create a eval based macro. Okay, so now macro has a separate permissions as well. If you see from this macro list page, you can, and you can set the permissions as well. So currently I'll show you, I'll set this permission as this app only, and read I'll say everyone, and write, let's say admin. Let's do it for all the macros permission. So you have to be very careful with the macro permissions as well. Otherwise, any unprivileged user will not be able to run this macro, and your dashboard will not show up anything. So read, write. Okay. Now we have set the permissions of the macro as well. Now let's see what's going on at the background. So I am in my Splunk home. I'll go to etc apps, tmdb app, and I'll go to my local folder. If you see, whenever you create a macro, it creates another conf file called macros.conf. I'll open this file, and if you see all different macros we have created, it's created separate stanza for that macro name, and with all the input numbers, right? And args is the inputs of these macros, right? For bonus, if you see here, for bonus my arguments are vp and bonus, right? Two arguments, those are showing up here. This is the macro definition, this is the error message, you set it for this macro. This is the validation you have set it for this macro, and this is eval is telling you whether this macro is eval based or not. As our last macro get gener or main is eval based, that's why is eval is 1. For rest of the two macros is eval is 0. Okay, now you can call a macro another inside another macro. So to do that, let's do this exercise where we have created this total salary, right, and also bonus. So inside total salary we will try to call this bonus one. To do that, I'll do one thing. I'll clone this total salary macro. No, I'll just let's create a new one only. It's a total salary SALARY v2 version 2. Okay, so what I will do, it will not be eval based macro. Let's say my previous will be there, eval, right? So it has two arguments, basic salary and variable percent, right? Now I'll be adding this bonus as well. So bonus requires another extra input called bonus, right? So I'll be adding this as a extra input, comma this. So my total macro inputs will be 3. Basic salary and variable pay will be used here, and variable pay and bonus will be used in another eval statement which we have, which will be calling in this bonus macro, right? So in this case I will be calling this bonus macro inside. So I'll say this one pipe, then my bonus macro. Bonus macro takes two arguments. One is variable percent and another is bonus. So variable percent I'll pass, and I'll pass this bonus as well. So ideally the behavior should be same as we have seen before, right? So done, tick. Okay, so now let's save it. Okay, so total salary 2. So before we do that, so let us run our macro. So I'll just copy paste that code portion here, right? So I'll just copy paste this code portion here. Macro total salary non, okay, I think total, I am my macro is total salary as mismatch parenthesis. Okay, okay, so it has created this one in this new field. In the new search field, what I'll do is, on after this one I'll be calling my total salary version 2 macro. Okay, where it is doing the work of both of these two, bonus and total salary, right? So total salary version 2. Okay, so my tick version 2 requires three arguments. One is my basic salary, variable percent, and the similar percent value I'll give 8, so that we can at least compare what's the outputs. So if I run this one, see if it is working in the same way, where it is creating this bonus field and total salary, and if you see the output is same as well. 15, 22. We have given 7 here. Okay, let's run it with 7 only. So if you see 15, 22, 22, 20, 17, 10, 17, like this. Okay, so this is how you can call a macro inside another macro as well. So if you see here, by this structure you can achieve a very complex structure as well, and complex structure which is basically a usable component in Splunk search query. Okay, so this is how you need to know basically to deal with macros. And macros are very useful in Splunk because not only it gives you the modularity approach, but also it's give you a very shorter search string and very readable codes as well. Okay, see you in next video.